Sure. I'll talk it out.
Yeah, let's just have a conversation.
Track 3.
Better not be fucking Dave Matthews Band.
Okay. Those of you who don't want to be a part of this can leave now.
Derek, please listen to me.
But if you choose to stay, which it seems like you guys are choosing,
Derek, please.
you understand and agree to the following terms and conditions.
Derek!
1.
Derek, this is the virus.
You hereby waive your right
Derek, please.
to your own personal bodily integrity.
This is not you.
2.
I'm a life.
Per the State versus Neville Reed, my colleague and I will not be held criminally liable for any felony or misdemeanor that you may be a victim of, including, but not limited to, aggravated assault, aggravated battery, disorderly conduct, destruction of property, mayhem, and first-degree murder. And 3, terms and conditions may change or be updated whenever the fuck I want! Consider yourselves notified.
All right. DJ Anubis here with you on the Metal Tag Radio Podcast. New edition of Global Unscripted. Got a couple of topics I want to talk about today. First one is the disturbing trend of racist and sexist attacks on gamers. And then later on, we got the strange case of Curious George, Katie Bugs, and the Tickle Monster. So first, I'm going to dive into this Sweet Baby Inc. stuff again. I talked a little bit about it either on Unscripted or on the When I Raid Gaming stuff or not. But, this thing has really kind of like opened my eyes to something that I find as a very troublesome trend. Right now in America, there's a lot of race baiting, a lot of race war stuff going on. I don't believe for a second that it's a majority of America. Like, I think it's these loud mouthpieces on the right and the left. But now when we come into the gaming, you're starting to see some of this stuff from the left that's very disturbing, especially in terms of white people. But this is kind of like why I like some of these other black voices in the gaming community that are stepping up and pushing back on this narrative that some of these magazines and game zines or whatever, and Sweet Baby Inc. and these game developers that are pushing these like racist narratives and sexist narratives against us. So first thing I want to do is I want to break down this whole timeline of how we got here. And then I'm going to show you like different things of what's happening in terms of like what they're saying. So keep in mind, I'm not saying that these people that I'm going to be talking about haven't faced their own kind of racist or sexist backlash on them. Again, I don't think those are the majority. I think a majority of us understand that we've gotten used to games over the years, games that we like. And really, as a consumer, you have the freedom of choice to pay for a product that you want or not want. And so when you have a company like SBI, Sweet Baby Inc., that's kind of pushing a narrative like, oh, you're harassing us because you trying to boycott us. Well, boycotting you is not against the law. We can do that. It doesn't matter if their intentions are bad or not. Like, from what I can tell, everyone is pretty cool with diversity and inclusion. We've all talked about it. It's existed in games forever. So the fact that anybody's saying that we don't accept it, that's just a lie. We do. We've proven it time and time again by buying those games and playing those games and praising those games. So it exists. It has existed, and we have no real problem, at least as far as the majority of gamers. Sure, there's some piggybackers that will jump on and try to use this as a moment to attack personally to these companies. Now, if I've attacked them on Twitter or whatever, it's only because they're saying the lies themselves. So I push back on that. I don't call them names, or I don't sit there and harass them to the point that I'm on their Twitter pages all day and all that kind of stuff. I don't do all that. But if they make a dumb post, I'm going to call out that dumb post, which I have done. So some of these people have blocked me. That's fine. It's your privilege, your choice. You don't want to try to stand your ground and converse with me about why you're lying about something. That's your problem, not mine. But let's start from the beginning, right? So basically what we had was there was a gentleman named Cabrutus Rambo who started a Steam group called Sweet Baby Inc. Detected. And what this group was designed for was to curate a list of games that Sweet Baby Inc. has worked on. And this kind of started with the whole Suicide Squad game that came out and didn't do very well. And there were some real big inconsistencies with that game. One of them was, that I've talked about before, is the character of Harley Quinn actually sexually harasses one of the other Justice League members while they're kind of like frozen or something due to some sort of spell. So this group, this Sweet Baby Inc., their whole objective is to make inclusion, diversity, narratives, and storylines. So that's fine. That's fine. No one has a problem with that. At least in terms of that's their freedom to do that as a company, right? That's what they're hired to do. But when you see like storylines fall, or in cases like the Suicide Squad, where you have a female character sexually harassing a male character, if that were to be reversed, we know that Sweet Baby Inc. would be pissed off about that. They would change that immediately, right? So the fact that they're kind of allowing certain things and then not doing other things makes no sense. It goes against their whole premise of who they are. Now, maybe they didn't have a choice in that matter. I don't know, but you would think that if they're the ones that are kind of overlooking this game in particular, that they would catch that, right? But I'll get to a bit more, because as we talk about some of these other people that are involved in this ordeal, we're going to start seeing some of this sexism that's coming across to men bleeding through this, and racism as well. So anyway, this list is created. One of the employees from SBI, Chris Kindred, ends up discovering the group somehow and takes great offense to it. Now, I don't know if he was pissed off because, he was reading some comments about it, like people just being kind of derogatory inside that thread, which wasn't attached to SBI forum or anything, like whatever they have. It wasn't like they were on their Twitter page at that point yelling obscenities, right? So whatever comments were in there were in that particular Steam group alone. So either he was mad about that, or mad because the list was even being created. Like, apparently one of the things that Alyssa Mercante, who I'll get to in a minute, from Kotaku, tried to come out and say was, well, they just don't want people buying the games. Well, yeah, they're informing people of games they may not be interested in. That's freedom of speech, dude. You claim to be like this pillar of like freedom and stuff, but yet you don't understand the concept of freedom of choice. Like, why don't you understand that concept? I don't get that. But anyway, Kindred comes out, and then I'll immediately, in this tweet here, says, anyway, report the fuck out of this group. So this is part of the tweet that he had where he's like, this group's creating a list, and he was trying to get the Cabrutus Rambo banned and the Steam group banned. It should be noted, though, that the Steam group themselves have not banned the group. They said they broke no rules. So that's already like a big fuck you to Chris Kindred. Like, they're not going to bend to you whining because there's a list. But this started to steamroll into some other things regarding, because Chris was taking some heat for this. He should, right? You say stupid shit, you win stupid prizes. And it turns out that all of a sudden we have this Alyssa Mercante from Kotaku, which is a gamer zine, whatever you want to call it, on the web. It's been doing more of like, opinionated pieces rather than gaming stuff. Like it has gaming in there, but not as much as it used to. So anyway, she comes in, and the first thing she does is basically what she ended up putting in her header of her Twitter was, "Hi, you can't be racist against white people. Thanks for tuning in." And again, she got backlash, and rightfully so, because if you actually take time to look up the definition of racism, there you go. Prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism by an individual, community, or institution against a person or people on the basis of their membership in a particular racial or ethnic group. Ethnic group, typically one that is minority or marginalized, typically, not exclusively. So that definition there, even if you want to claim, like someone say, well, prejudice is different than racism. No, it's right there. You stupid asses. It's right fucking there. Can't tell you anymore. It's right fucking there in the definition. It's racism. Sorry. You lose. Go home. Do not pass go. So anyway, she ends up like blocking me, of course, mainly because she made some comment like, I don't understand like why this company's getting so much pushback or why I'm getting so much pushback. I'm like, it's because you're lying. You're lying about a lot of shit. And so she blocked me because I called her out on that shit. So I don't care. That's her right to block me. I don't give a fuck. But I'm not going to just let you get a pass for saying dumbass shit. It's not going to happen. I'm going to call you out on it. Anyway, more recently, that particular webzine, their CEO Media, I guess, who owns it, came out and said, well, we're going to switch back over to gaming guides. We want to do like 50 a week. I guess that's pretty hefty take, which other gaming sites have said that's really kind of absurd, but but the senior editor, I figured her name, last name's Glennon, I think. She resigns. Like she's not down with that. Because right now you can tell by her resigning some of the aftermath of what happened. Like a lot of other journalists come out and they're like upset that you're fucking taking away our opinion pieces and all this. And so anyway, but CEO Media ended up back down. They're kind of switching it up again. They're just basically folded under the pressure, I guess, from their own company employees. But so then Alyssa comes out and she's kind of like now going to start using Kotaku again as hit pieces. So now when we start talking about harassment and bullying and all this other targeting stuff, right? So she wants to come out and start attacking Asmon, which, of course, she's doing here by trying to get info. She tried this shit with Melanie Mack, and in fact, her and Melanie had a back and forth on Twitter or whatever, talking about trying to do interview, talk to each other. And I can kind of understand why Melanie Mack wouldn't do it. Now, here's the thing. And I want to set this straight here. I'm not a fan of Melanie Mack. I'm not. I think she's kind of I think she uses her Christianity in a really hateful way. It's not that she's not, a smart person or a good gamer. She's probably way better at games than I am. But the reality is, like, because she is opinionated and she is a Christian, she says a lot of like, basically talks out her ass. And everybody knows I have a big axe to grind with Christianity and religion myself. So I don't really feel sorry for Melanie Mack for like when she gets, suspended from Twitter or Twitch, whatever, a few weeks back or anything like that. Because even though I didn't think it was really warranted, I just think that you say dumb shit, they're going to fucking do it. They're going to do it. But here's the other thing. I also know that if Alyssa was to interview Melanie on her channel or on video, or whatever, that Alyssa, as a journalist, is going to go and twist everything she says into the most obscene crap ever, just to make it hateful. So you can't. This is the problem. You can't trust journalists these days. Mainstream media journalists, you can't trust them. Gaming journalists now, you can't trust them. They don't tell the truth. It used to be that journalism was all about being objective and just putting out the truth and putting out what's being said. But instead, people like Alyssa want to go and twist the narratives to fit their own agendas. And so obviously it's pretty clear that even with Asmongold, like she tries to claim Asmongold's like conservative, which is the most ridiculous joke I've ever heard in my life. But it's clear that no one's going to play that game. But it's also clear that Alyssa's going to start using dirty tactics to try to dig up dirt on people as if she's like cleansing America in some way, which is kind of ridiculous. But the last thing on Alyssa, though, is very interesting. And this is why, again, there's some big problems with these people, right? So with Chris, we saw started this whole mess, tried to, no magazines out there were covering it except for maybe a couple that actually mentioned how it all started. Every other one of them said, nope, the Steam group started it all. Nope. They didn't want to talk about Chris Kindred actually starting a harassment campaign against this Steam group. No one wanted to talk about it. So the last thing, though, is apparently just the other day, and I don't know if this is a relatively new tattoo or whatever, but Alyssa got a tattoo on her thigh. And apparently she used to be like a cam girl or something, so that's kind of funny to me. Which I'll bring up later about some of this stuff too in terms of gaming. But so Alyssa got the tattoo, right? And so of all the beautiful things you can get as art, like, we all got body art in some form or fashion, right? Of all the things you can do, this is what she chose to do. All men are enemies. Now, apparently she has a fiance. Now, I just kind of pegged her as a lesbian, which is not a big deal, but that's just kind of how I pegged her. But I can't understand how, like, if she has a fiance who is a man, like, why this would be okay. Like, I really don't get that. Don't get that at all. But this is the problem. Like, one thing that we notice about some of these other people when they generalize people, right? So just like what's going on now, if you get, let's say you get 5 people that go and harass Alyssa and they just say the most god-awful things, right? They try to use those 5 people as like the majority of gamers, which is the biggest joke. Like just the other day, actually earlier today, Master TDS, who I did an interview with not too long ago, he's been tracing bots, and he was tracing bots on the Acolyte trailer because that's taking a lot of heat. And there's a lot of negative ones on there, but again, somebody comes out and they're like, well, it's like 517K white dudes that just don't like this game, not like this because there's a female lead. And it's like, where's the data to prove that? Like, you say a lot of shit, but you don't have data to back any of that up. And I can guarantee you it's not just white dudes. There's fucking white, black, women, probably some trans. I don't know. You can have a great variety of people that are going to have a problem because it looks like it's ass. Like, now, granted, I don't care. Like, I'm not even the biggest Star Wars fan. I mean, I didn't like the last 3 movies because they didn't have that overall feel and vibe of the first 6, right? There's like this certain vibe that it brings to me, but the last 3 didn't have that. Rogue One was amazing, and that's more of a newer one. That's very diverse. It's inclusive, like, good story. That's the problem. It's a good story. The rest, these 3 other movies, terrible stories. Hell, some of the actors in the fucking movie said they were terrible stories. So I don't want to fucking hear that it's just gamers or fans of movies that are having issues with it because of female leads. And that's ridiculous. I liked Gina Carano in The Mandalorian. Guess what you did? You fucking kicked her out for just having an opinion. Meanwhile, Pedro gets to say whatever the fuck he wants. No penalties. Guy privilege? I don't know. You tell me. But anyway, so let's move on. Kim Belair, she's the CEO of Sweet Baby Inc. There's a video here where she basically goes through and uses this terminology that as she goes to approach companies that they're going to hire them, that you have to convince them or threaten them with like the possibility of boycotts if they don't get their way in terms of how they want to write a narrative in a movie or a game. this would be a game for Sweet Baby. So Asmon's covering this. I know that's just going to drive Alyssa out the wall, but he's just relaying information at this point. This is all this is, and it's all right there. It's all receipts. Kim said it. It's in context. I'm sorry. It is what it is.
Co-founder of Sweet Baby Inc. proudly explains the method that she uses to force bosses at game studios to censor, alter, and diversify game projects she feels are problematic, terrify them, aka threaten them with the anger of the cancel culture mob. Okay, let's listen to what's said.
If you're a creative working in AAA, which I did for many, many years, put this stuff up to your higher-ups, and if they don't see the value in what you're asking for when you ask for consultants, when you ask for research, go have a coffee with your marketing team and just terrify them with the possibility of what's going to happen if they don't give you what you want.
Right. And so let me explain really what that terror is. 5 tweets that go viral and then nobody actually cares after that. And I'll give some examples for that. So number 1, Final Fantasy 16 was criticized tremendously because it didn't have representation of different races, and the game was massively successful. Another good example is Hogwarts Legacy. Like, based off of the feedback and the information that was online.
Now I'll say this regards to Hogwarts, like, it's so funny about whenever people like get outraged by something, right? So I played Hogwarts. I bought it when it came out. But initially I had really no interest in it because I didn't really know much about it. Like, I didn't really have much interest. It wasn't until you got this huge, like, triggering outrage by the trans community and their allies, where they were trying to harass and bully and, you know, say violent things, death threats to gamers that were playing this game, whether they're doing it strictly for review purposes or even just for entertainment. Because, you know, look, I didn't really read the books of Harry Potter, but I enjoyed the movies. So, I mean, I have some familiarity with the concept of what it's about. But I didn't have any interest in the game until, like, the outrage started. So I started following all that, and I was seeing what was going on. And they were just outrageously crazy about it. Like, it's like, dude, you even had a trans character in there and you're still mad. Like, it's like, find something better to be angry about. But it didn't do anything because, as Asmon's going to say, this game was the best-selling game last year. And I saw people literally, kid you not, they may not even play it. They said, I'm going to buy 3 copies. Doesn't matter if I care about playing it or not. I'm just going to buy 3 just to spite them. And that's the problem, man, because people come in, and it's kind of like Kindred. They try to tell you what you should do and what you shouldn't do. And nobody likes being told what to do, man. Like, if we want to make a list of games that SBI works on just to inform people, we should be able to do that without harassment. It's none of your fucking business. Go about your day. Do your own work, man. Worry about yourself. But you picked a fight and you're losing it because you're not going to win this. So yeah, let's finish this.
Probably was like half the game killing gay people. I mean, it has to be, right? But whenever you play the game, you know that's not the case. And on top of that, it was the best-selling game last year. It sold like 20 million copies. So if they're trying to terrify these media and these marketing teams, cancel culture mobs and people getting angry on Twitter don't mean anything. It's just completely vapid garbage. It's vapid hot air.
There's like a genuine value that you can impress upon them, both ethically and financially. You could say this is important. And it's also
Clown world. Yeah. So, you know, they've had some successes. There's been some successes with SBI with some games, right? Generally brand name stuff like God of War or Spider-Man 2. So you have like a brand name thing. And so even though some people still have issues, like, so say like the God of War, I was talking about with Neko not too long ago about some of this. They added in a black character. Now, on the surface, it doesn't really mean a lot, but when you actually know about fucking Norwegian and Viking history, blacks weren't there unless they had taken them as slaves from like Peru or something, or something like that during the history. But, you know, they tried to pass it off as like the god was just taking any form, which you can do. But as far as like most people that played it, it didn't make any sense in the logistics of the storyline. It just didn't make any sense. So again, diversity and inclusion is fine. It's just got to make sense, and it's got to be a good story behind. Now, Spider-Man 2, I don't know anything about it. People had problems with it, but apparently it still did very well. But again, brand name type of game, so you kind of expect that. But I think when it comes to some of these other titles that aren't as well known, they're not doing as well. Now, Suicide Squad's a brand name, but people were crushing it because it's just very bad. And it probably has more to do with the gameplay rather than the actual story stuff. But I guess I hear it's kind of like very chaotic story wise. Like it's not really, wasn't well put together overall. So either SBI is involved in that or not. But either way, not doing very well, and it's under their brand name. So either way you want to look at it. If you're somebody that loves SBI titles, go buy them. You know, you have that freedom to go support that. But people that don't want to be putting their money into that, because let's face it, not all of us are rich. I can't just go buy every game on the planet, so I have to be selective. And if I don't want crazy narratives that I'm not worried about, then I should be able to choose what I want to buy. Especially when I hear people like Kim, because she has another video out there. I don't have it right now, but she starts explaining about how she's trying to tell these companies that they're working with that, you know, we're trying to be inclusive and all this, but we also, you know, we've been catering to the picky babies, as she calls most gamers. But the reality is that, you know, the picky babies are the ones that are making you money. So it's kind of funny when I hear someone say, well, we can either just keep giving you what you want, which is making you money, or we can fuck it up to the point that nobody's interested in or not buying it. So like from a financial standpoint, how does that make any fucking sense? Like, your goal is to make money. I don't see why a studio would hire you unless they don't want to make money. Like, what is the point here? I don't get this. You should really want to make money. And if you're doing something that works, don't break it. Don't change it. Now, if you want to take a game, and let's say initially it was like a white character only. But now, if you want to update it and you want to make the character where you can choose any color, any sex, whatever, great. I'm okay with that. I'm 100% behind that. But in some cases, Kim was saying, well, we want to force the gamers, the picky babies, to have to play a black character. Well, how's that any different than just doing a white character? Like, you're contradicting yourself. You're being a hypocrite here. Like, you want diversity, but then you don't want diversity. Like, it's really kind of a weird thing that they're trying to push. And I just don't really understand that. All right. Next is someone named Danny Lalanders, right? So she kind of inserted herself into this fray to defend Sweet Baby Inc. because she used to work with them, I think, at some point. And excuse me. Got a lot of cotton mouth today. Take my blood pressure meds. Blows my mind. So she used to work with Sweet Baby Inc. And so she inserted herself into the fray, right? Defending him, of course. But the thing that was funny about it is, you know, the thing you have to worry about when you go online, X, Twitter, Facebook, whatever, if you don't scrub your history, like, it comes back to haunt you, and it did with this chick. So she has a video out there from 2019, I think. And now, granted, she's come out and said that she doesn't really feel that way anymore, but, you know, that's just damage control, in my opinion. It is what it is. Because if you didn't get called out on it, you would have made that video out far sooner, right? You would have just said, yeah, you know, I had to come back and, you know, reevaluate something I said, you know, last year. And I felt like after looking back at it, it was wrong. But instead, you don't make a new video until after someone's calling you out on it. So basically what she did was she runs like a group that's working on a game. I think she was working on the Black Panther game right now or something like that, right? So she goes on to say that she well, here, let's let her talk. It's really a quick clip. Just her stating she's being interviewed by somebody, I guess. But it's kind of funny how she approaches this.
Team. Who is your team? A little background about this. I have a team of 21 right now for Validate. It's a pretty big team. It's a crazy big team for indie games. But who is your team? Validate has a team of mostly all people of color. We have no white people on our team. I did that because I wanted to create a safe environment. And I know the best way for an environment to be safe is to be around people who are just like me. And I'm not saying that white people in the industry are creating unsafe environments. I'm not saying that. That is not what I'm saying. I am saying that sometimes it is hard to work with white people because they think that something made it okay, but it was really a microaggression.
Yeah. So again, flip flop. She says one thing, then says it's not that, but then comes back and says it's a microaggression. Now, imagine, if you will. Now, Alatori, I saw one of her videos this morning, says the same thing I do all about this. And I say it on Twitter all the time. Imagine for a moment, right? If you're a white guy and you're saying this only in reverse, you're saying, I have all white team because I can't have black people on my staff because I feel like I might get robbed or, I feel unsafe, like I might get shanked or something. Yeah. And like, even if I have one and they don't like something I say, it's like a microaggression or a really aggressive manner. They get really volatile. Could you imagine doing that and having a job afterwards? Like, if that white dude did that, he would be fired before you even got to the last sentence. He'd be done. Or a white woman, anybody white would be gone. So it's amazing to me that people employ people like this with the blatant racism. Like, that's my problem with American society. Is so there's double standard that it's okay to be racist against white people, but the minute that you change the variables, like, oh nope, it's a white person, you got to fucking mouse them out and cancel them, they're done. Black people, free pass. Yeah, you can get violent with whoever you want, man. You can do this and that. It's not racism. No. So yeah, like, look, I don't hate this chick. I don't know anything about her, but I know that I would never want to work for her or with her if I had that kind of, like, if I was a gamer or developer or anything. I just couldn't do it. Like, who wants to be around that? That's really more of a, what's the word I want to use? I don't even want to use unsafe. I just want to say it's like it's a volatile area to be in. Like, you don't want to be around people who just don't like you. You know what I mean? Because then I'd be afraid to even speak up and say, hey, I think we should do this with this character. She'll be taking that as me being microaggressive about it. It's like, what are you talking about? It's called having a discussion. So I don't know. I don't like people like this. I think they're bad. I think she should have been fired. She should be fired from her job now if she still holds those beliefs. It's just really bad. Moving on. More recently, BBC host Jules Hardy calls for violent purge of gamers who simply don't want to play certain games. Now, I threw in violent. She didn't say violent, but let's think about this. I've heard a lot of the left say words matter, and especially when it comes to Trump, right? Trump the other day, and I'm not even a Trump fan, so fuck that dude, but he said something about like the bloodbath in terms of like the auto industry, if we allow it to go outsourced as opposed to being in America. So of course the little fucking hens on The View like want to twist it into something violent. Whoopi's all fucking dumb shit saying that it's going to be a violent act. It's context matters, right? So in this case, do I think that Jules is saying that, we need to purge gamers violently out of the league? No, but if I wanted to use that, I could, right? Because that's fair. If words matter, that's a poor choice of words. So let's hear a little bit from Trent Report on this.
Children's BBC host and on-air TV personality Julia Hardy, who now goes by Jules Hardy, called for a final purge of gamers after a boycott list was created for consultancy group Black Girl Gamers. Before we get into this, I'd like to ask you, please hit that subscribe button, hit that bell for notifications so you don't miss any of our future videos here at the Trent Report. I wrote this up over at That Park Place this morning. And this is how it all started. User Becky8903740521 posted this to X, tagged in Black Girl Gamers, and said, Black Girl Gamers, you wanted to defend Sweet Baby Inc. with all you could possible. Well, here is your page because you wanted to finish Sweet Baby Inc. when I know that you both work together on projects and force DEI is nothing.
Actually, sorry, that's not the one for Jules. I thought it was. Oh, well, he did say Jules earlier. So let me see. Let me see if I can find it.
More than race, but I couldn't find it. And obviously, you can see that stopping. So have fun. So that's just kind of one grand. Can we have a last full detox of these, dude, so we can get back to the positive gaming community we have been created? So she wants a final purge.
Yeah. So you say final purge, and like that sounds kind of like a violent thing you want, right? So, and the funny thing is, someone like Alyssa would say, "Yeah, violent. Who cares? Let's do it." But sorry, I had a text. So yeah, so again, if words matter, then her wording of this is very very bad. Like it's a very it can be taken as a violent act against gamers simply because she doesn't like the fact that we create a list of games that Sweet Baby Inc. works on. And it's like, this inclusion of the community. The community was just fine before fucking, I hate to say, before the woke shit really came into it. Like, that's the only time it became an issue, really, if you think about it. I've talked to people on X, Black people that I'm going to interview Mew and Lord later on today. And we're going to have a nice discussion about some of this stuff. He's a Black man. So, like, what's Alyssa going to do? What is all these rest of these people going to call him a fucking Uncle Tom or a race traitor? Like, you're trying to get all cute with that shit. There's plenty of Black people on YouTube that are speaking out against these companies, against what they're trying to do to gamers. So it cracks me up, and some of them are even female. So, like, I don't want to fucking hear it. It was just fine. And these people will tell you that. You're going to have pockets of assholes. That's just how life is. So if you're asking me if there's pockets of assholes in the gaming world, sure. And those are the people that usually like the big mouths who want to like strut their shit and talk a bunch of junk. But you got to tune them out. You know what I'm saying? Those are the people you got to tune out. But if you're going to start a war with the entire gaming community, we can't control what that little pocket of assholes do, but we can sit there and tell you straight, like, you're fucking nuts if you think that we're harassing you by creating a fucking list. That's stupid.
Of people like this Becky person who's creating a boycott list on Black Girl Gamers due to their injection of DEI and wokeness into their video games, which was abundantly clear because the Black Girl Gamers did indeed consult on Square Enix's Forspoken. It was a financial failure and was full of all kinds of woke DEI, and they have admit on their website that they were fully involved with the game, like all aspects of the game they consulted on.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't want to go through the whole thing, but reality is that the thing that works in the favor of SBI is that they have a lot of pull with like a lot of the big mainstream, like even to the point that some of the government stuff was. The government was trying to get involved in stuff too, calling gamers terrorists. Like, that's the most ridiculous bullshit I've ever heard. Like, I hate the fact that right now some of these people are trying to bring in politics into it all. Like, as far as like, oh, it's a bunch of right wingers, and no, the gamers are people of all sorts. I'm libertarian. There's a bunch of lefties that are gamers. There's a bunch of righties that are gamers. It's people all across the board. It's so fucking dumb to try and pigeonholed as like, oh, it's just the alt-right wingers that are going crazy. No, it's not. There's plenty of people on all sides of the aisles telling you to fuck off, quit being like little bitches, and like learn how to deal with like a list. So back to the black gamers girls, right? So here's the thing about them. Now, if they even see this video, which they may or may not, because I'm so small of a YouTuber, if they do, they may try to come after me legally, but they can kiss my ass. I have lawyers too. I don't make money from this, but I have lawyers. And even though I'm not going to go as far as what some people have said about them not hiring white people to their company, like I'm not saying that because I don't have any proof to that. I think that the fact that people are kind of making a connection to that is because they have this private community group they have. And if you see here, right here at the bottom, like on the right here, it says, "Do you identify as a woman or a non-binary person? By selecting yes, you acknowledge that BGG does not permit self-identifying men to join our private community groups." So that, my friends, is what is called a form of discrimination. Now, it's a private group, fine. But again, you have to ask yourself, if we come out and said, and if we had our own group that said, if you consider yourself a black person in America, we don't allow you in this group. That'd be a problem, right? If it was an all men's group for gaming, we don't want women, it'd be a problem. So this idea that, like, if other guys are making connections in their theories that these women or these people that run this BGG group company don't hire white people, well, it's not far-fetched, because here we have evidence of a private community you have discriminating against men. So even though it's your right to do so, it's still discrimination. And so I don't personally care, because to me, with anybody in this list that I've talked about, they are the equivalent to the KKK. That's how I see it. They are the equivalent on the other side to the KKK. They're racist, they're sexist, they're not good for the gaming community at all. And even if SBI has good intentions, I think they have the wrong people running that. Like, and I think some gamers would agree with me. Some gamers don't want any kind of like woke shit in it, but it's not the diversity and inclusion that bothers people. It's the fucking stories that are folding underneath it. So I've talked about this with movies. If you want to have inclusion and, varied groups of characters, sex, race, whatever, then build your story and then insert your people. But don't go into it setting your pawns up first and then trying to build a story around it, because it's not going to work. It hasn't worked. We've seen how it doesn't work. Movies right now and games that do that approach it that way, get crushed. They fall under the pressures of the narratives that they're trying to hold up. They'd rather focus on identity politics rather than good gaming experience. And, I'm a casual gamer, so if I can see that as a casual gamer, I can only imagine the diehard gamers who are like fed up with this shit, right? So I understand their issues with this. Now I'm gonna put a couple links to some articles in the description when I'm done, from Fandom Pulse and That Park Place. They kind of address both of this stuff. But yeah, it's a really fucking crazy shit with that. I don't know what else to say on it. It's just crazy. Like, I can't believe that a list of games that is publicly on their own website started this whole fucking thing. Like I want to say it's petty of them, but I'm not shocked that this happened, because triggered and petty is exactly what the left is. And it's so frustrating from my perspective, as a libertarian in the middle. Like, I see dumb shit that the right does all the time, and I don't like it, but it seems like it's always the left that wants to kind of fall into these traps, and they get triggered so easily by the simplest of things. And it's like, after a while, you have to wonder what their real objective is. Like, I don't know. It's just baffling to me. Okay. Well, let's move on to our next subject. It's probably going to still be a little bit controversial, because I'm going to try to come into it as objective as possible. And I've been following this story for about a week or so to try to let it flesh out and kind of get all the information that's needed to do this, because basically it's called The Strange Case of Curious George, Katie Bugs, and a Tickle Monster. And I worded it that way because it's kind of funny, and it's kind of based in some of what happened, but it's also because I think that the whole issue was a big misunderstanding, and it should never have blown up to the way it has now. I think that it's gotten so beyond what it should have been. Like, I think you have two people that probably should have just sat and talked this out behind the scenes, rather than have this girl come up and put them on full blast in the public. So basically, I'm gonna give you a little bit of a breakdown, a little bit here of what happened. And then I'll show you a video too, because that'll kind of help. But so a girl named Katie Bugs is a Twitch streamer, and so is George Not Found. They both play Minecraft. And apparently a couple of years ago, they went to VidCon and got together, with a group of people, and were drinking and all this stuff. Now, she's 18. At that point, she was 18, so she's probably a little bit older now. George was about 26 at the time. And there's some debate about whether or not she lied about her age going into, like, they had a hotel room. They were all gathering together, kind of like what Neko and I did with G-Fest, with Sci-Fi Century and Kevin Lambert. And then we got to meet them last summer at Godzilla Fest. But, they had a hotel room, and they were drinking. They were there for a couple days. So the girls came back both days. The second day they were there, the second evening, Katie and George were on the couch. Apparently some other people too. And there's, other people in the room there. And they were cuddling on a couch for a while. And apparently Katie got up a couple times to go to the bathroom or say goodbye to people, and then came back, sat down. Didn't seem to be any real issues. Then at some point, George is like, "Are you ticklish?" And she said no, but he probably tried to tickle her anyway, see if he can get her to be ticklish. That's kind of normal. But then at some point, he kind of like, initially his take is he put his hand on her waist. And this is something that she pointed to about when she came out and accused him of sexual assault. Now, more recently, she has said that he actually fondled her boobs or grabbed her boobs. And but this is the weird thing about her story, is it's changing a lot as it's going. And so that's kind of hard to side with her on this, per se. And I don't know if it's just her doubling down because some of the pushback, but either way, I'm still going to try to be as objective about it all as I can be. I'm going to try to explain my thought process on this. Granted, I'm 54 now, just turned 54 on Sunday. I'm 54, so in some sense, I'm like the boomer sort of. I'm just like, I was born in 70, but the times that I grew up as a teen and as a young 20-something, the things that happen here, I would not consider sexual assault, and I'm going to explain why. But, times are changing, and so people, and I'm not trying to dismiss Katie's feelings on it, because if she truly believes that, then that's how she felt. But it may be also inexperience, because apparently, I guess she's a virgin, so she's never really had that, kind of intimacy or whatever you want to call it, fooling around, I guess. So there's no experience there with that, right? So, but let me go through this first. I can't remember who's doing the video. I'll make sure to look it up and give him credit for it when I'm done.
Minecraft community has been going through a real Me Too movement as of late, and on the 9th of March 2024, a 19-year-old, known online as Katie Bugs, would come forward with her story. Within a 30-minute stream, she would break down into tears several times as she described an unwanted sexual experience with a content creator 8 years older than her at a convention back in the summer of 2023. This story came out not too long after the Wilbur Soot allegations, and seemingly inspired by Shelby Grace's testimony, Katie's story was what everyone on Twitch and Twitter were talking about. Very similar to Shelby's case, once this stream dropped, people online immediately began to speculate who this person was, and very quickly, a prime suspect was deduced. This is how Katie described her alleged assaulter.
He was someone I had once watched, and he was 8 years older than me, and far more powerful.
Very quickly, people narrowed down that the 26-year-old large creator who attended VidCon that year was none other than George Not Found. If you don't know him, George Not Found is a Minecraft creator, probably best known for being one of Dream's best friends. What's said to have happened on that summer night between Katie and George is about to be...
Should be noted, there's apparently also talk that Katie is not a big fan of Dream, so some people think that some of this is like a vindictive thing, which again I'll talk a little bit later when I get into a little bit more, but just throwing that out there that she apparently has beef with Dream, so they some people speculate that she's doing this because she's trying to ruin or sour that relationship between Dream and George Not Found.
Discussed, and it's my mission here to try and be as respectful as possible towards the situation. I'm going to bring forward the information, explanations, allegations, and contradictions from both Katie and George. I'm not going to be mentioning their friend statements because they clearly are just very, very biased, and also a lot of their statements seem to contradict each other. I feel like if I mention them all, this video would just get way too messy, so we're just going to be primarily focusing on what's been said by George and Katie. Both Katie's initial statement and George's reply have both been uploaded to their respective Twitch channels, and I'll link the two of them in the description for you to look at. They're both about 30 minutes each, but only by watching them both, as well as reading their Twitter statements, can you really have the best grasp on who you believe. So first of all, let's go into the pair's initial stories so that we can see where they agreed upon before we get into where they differed. I'll keep this segment brief because their stories, as I'm sure you can guess, differed quite a lot. So Katie and a few of her friends had been at Dream's hotel room one night at VidCon when she met George. The first night, nothing scandalous happened. At this point, it could be assumed that George was unaware of Katie's age. This is important because at the time, George was 26 and Katie was 18 years old. A few days later at the convention, Katie would go back to Dream's hotel room with a few of her friends, and this night seemed to be much heavier than the last. Her and her friends had been drinking at a party that they had been to prior, and they were already drunk when they went to Dream's room. Dream and George already had alcohol there, and when the girls arrived, the attendants started playing drinking games. Katie and George this night were sat next to each other, which was when the incident of George touching her occurred. Throughout the night, more and more friends left or passed out, and early in the morning, Katie and George left at the same time. George tried to convince Katie to come into the lift with him, but she did not, and the two parted ways. Both of them agree on this rough outline of how the night played out, but it's in the differences of their statements which is really where this debate lies. So first up to bat was the pair's recollection of how many people were at this gathering. Katie, within her initial statement, claimed that she was accompanied by 2 other girls, and upstairs were 2 boys, Dream and George. This would make a group of 5.
That night, I went up to his room. Back at the hotel room again were the 2 friends and us 3 girls.
Within George's reply though, he contradicts that and claims that there were 2 other girls there, along with one of George's friends.
But Katie, her best friend, and 3 other of her friends ended up coming to the room, which had me, Dream, and my online friend that I just met. I also chose to mention my online friend. It doesn't really add to the story, but she never mentioned him or the 8th person that she brought with. So I'm just saying it because that's how it happened, and I want to make sure the story is straight.
We'll get into why they said different numbers later on, because this has since been cleared up, but at least within their initial statements, Katie mentioned only 5, whereas George mentioned 8. Regardless, George later provides screenshots within his stream that proves that all of the girls within this group chat that were about to attend the party seemed very excited to go. And this is slightly different to how Katie described it.
Us 3 were at a party when it got boring, and whether the girl wanted to leave and go to his room, or he asked us to, I cannot remember. Once again, I was drunker than the night before and was willing to go anywhere. I was naive, and so we went back. I remember a friend seeing me in the lobby on the way. They were worried by the way I was acting and asked if I was okay. I was really drunk, and it was an eerie feeling, like they could sense something was wrong, and I wondered what would have happened if I had picked up on it. There was more alcohol in the room, and we were...
I think one thing that I find unfortunate about this is one thing that you often tell, you know, women these days is to look after one another, you know, more so than guys would, right? So, and there's reasons for this, is because oftentimes you hear these horror stories where girlfriends leave their friends, whether their friends don't want to go or not. They leave their friends and then something bad happens, right? So it's funny that when Katie tells this story about the lobby, is that nobody, like, if she, it's really weird because Katie says that she remembers the sexual assault very clearly, but almost nothing else except for the details that she gives. And I don't know, man, like, I would think that if you're so drunk that you just can't really remember shit, or you're just like disoriented, which it doesn't sound like from the way that things played out, that that's how it was. So I think she's kind of overstating the overdrunkenness about it all. But even if she was, why aren't the friends just saying, you know what, you've had enough, let's take you back home or whatever, back to your room or whatever? So it's kind of weird. Like, maybe Kay just maybe they did do that, and maybe she just pushed off and said, no, I'm going to go up there. But yeah, I just think if I'm, because she had guy friends there too, I think. And, you know, those are the people that need to really be firm about it and say, you know, you're done. Like, you need to go back to your room. And then even as the evening gets on, this video will probably get into, I don't know if I'm going to play it all because I got some other videos I want to show you. But, you know, there's a point where I think it's just her, George, and another couple left. And the other couple, they plan on getting busy with it. But Katie and George are not. They're going to go back to their own rooms at that point, I think. So clearly at some point, because there are people that, there's another girl that says that she saw Katie and she said she looked like she was weirded out, right? Well, again, that's another opportunity where the friend should be like, hey, we got to go, Katie, come on, or take her aside and say, hey, what's going on? Like, there's no assertiveness of the friends coming up and trying to check on her if there's really something going on. So this is problematic from so many and I you know, it's not to excuse George if he did something improper, but at the same time, like, people have to look after one another, and especially women. And so, like, there is some responsibility there. Like, if you really consider each other friends, you got to look after one another. Because then shit like this happens. You know what I'm saying?
Encouraged to drink some more as they offered the bottles to us. They said they would join us in drinking and insisted on drinking games, and, already drunk, I obviously complied.
These screenshots would also disprove what Katie was saying within her initial stream, that it was the boys who insisted on playing drinking games. Whether it be Katie misremembering or misarticulating herself, these screenshots paint a different picture. That said, mere moments later within Katie's stream, she brings up one of the most contentious disagreements. She claims that during a drinking game, she was asked a question in which she revealed her age, telling everybody that she was 18 years old.
Right before the incident, I had answered a question about my age. We were playing a drinking game and talking about sex, and I admitted to everyone in the room that I was 18 and that I was a virgin at the time. I remember back now to him answering questions during the game about back when he was 19 and when he was in college, noticing how my future was his past, and I wondered how he felt sitting so close to me.
In George's telling of the story, however, things went a little bit different.
And again, to clarify, I actually didn't know how old she was, despite her claiming that I did, just because it was in her bio. And it was clear to anyone there that she was not uncomfortable with me sitting next to her. I also want to address a fact that she claimed that would confirm that I know her age. She said that she had answered a question about her age during a drinking game, and we were talking about sex, and that she admitted to everyone in the room that she was 18 and a virgin at the time. I just don't remember this happening. I'm not saying this to just pretend like it didn't happen. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I did not hear it happen. We're not just all sitting down and not moving. It's a, it's a chaotic environment. I could have been getting a drink. I could have been talking to someone else. I just did not know that that was said.
Hearing the pair's statements on the matter, I'll leave it up to you on whether George knew her age or not, but this is what he had to say on the matter.
She actually assumed I didn't know her age because she had never said it. But then later, I had actually DM'd her on Instagram. And because of this, she says that it is confirmed that I know her age. To give some context to this scenario and to why I didn't know her age, my perspective of things is that I am with people that are over the age of 21 in a scenario where we are doing things that people that are over the age of 21 are doing, like drinking. And also the people that came from an event where they had very heavy security. This was an official VidCon after party. And with previous VidCon after parties, I even had problems getting into these events. There was actually a picture where it was shown that they had this 21 plus wristband on one of their wrists.
So a massive question here lies on whether George missed her age in her bio and didn't hear her state that she was 18. Though Katie, to this very day, includes her age within her Instagram bio, so do you think that he would have seen that? George's defense was that because he saw at least one of them wearing a 21 plus wristband, and because they were engaging in activities in which you have to legally be 21 or older to participate in, he just blindly accepted that they were all at least 21. George, I'd assume, would know what a 21 plus wristband would look like, but missing something that's right in plain sight, like an age in a bio, is suspicious.
Depends. He's a guy that's very popular. Probably has a lot of girls that hit, DM or whatever. Unless there's some backstory to like where he's been trying to woo her or romanticize with her, like prior to this VidCon thing. But I don't get that feeling at all because I get the feeling that they kind of just met then. Like they may have knew about each other in some way, but also with the bio thing, like you don't even know when that count was made, like unless you're looking at it, like if you're studying it, and like if I go in right now and say, oh, her bio might still say 19, I have no idea. I don't think it changes as she gets older, right? So if she created the bio at 19 or 18 or whatever it is, you may not even know when that account was created. So I don't know. I'd have to look up Instagram. I don't think it adjusts as you get older. I don't think it might, but anybody in the comments can clarify that for me. But yeah, if everyone else at the party is of age, like it's not hard to assume that she's probably of age, right? Like, but I think Kitty has come out and said that she didn't even have a wristband on. So I think she kind of like cleared that part up in terms of herself. So again, maybe George in passing saw somebody with it on and assumed that she would have one. I don't know. With that said, though, and I'm just gonna throw this out real quick. I listened to Papa Gut, his take on this yesterday, and this dude, he was pretty brutal on Katie, which I thought was a bit unfair. calling her a loser and a piece of trash. I didn't think that was necessary. He clearly has some strong feelings about the situation because he has friends that are women that have been sexually assaulted. So he feels like this claim that Katie makes is an insult to real victims. I'm not going to quite go that far. I will clarify why I kind of agree with him, but not in the terms of like calling her a loser and all this other crap. That's unnecessary. It's not right. The one thing that Papa's right about though is that she's 18, she's legal, period. People need to stop with this like, oh, he's 26, she's 18. No, dude, it's legal, period. It is. Whether you think a guy at his age should be looking at an 18-year-old. I mean, would we be giving this much of a shit if it was like a 21-year-old? I doubt it. And there's not going to be much growth between 18 and 21. And for me, for myself, I'm 54 right now. I'm still a man child, dude. I'm still my mind is still 18. Like my body's definitely old, but my mind is still around my 18 to 20 something years. That's how I am. Look at the shit behind me. I'm into so much shit that's more kiddie like in terms of like being a young youthful person. Now, granted, I'm 54. I'm not going to be going after 18-year-olds. I'm married. But even when I met my wife, I was 32. She was 21. That's a gap. That's 11 years. But we've been together now for 20 years. So I don't want to fucking hear this shit like, oh, he's grooming her. No, he's not. Like, unless he has like a prior history of doing this with other girls, which he might, and maybe I just don't know. But if it's just like a coincidence that they just have to be 8 years apart, as long as she's legal, dude, she's an adult. And that's where I agree with Papa Gut. Like, that's just, she's an adult. Quit trying to spin shit into pedo territory. It's not that at all. It's ridiculous. Just stop. Doesn't mean that if he grabbed her boobies without their consent that it's right. I'm just telling you from a dating standpoint, it's fine. I dated a girl that was 18 when I was 25. Didn't work out because we were vastly different people, but it's not like it was predatory. Just stop. Quit being assholes. Okay, so let's carry on.
Especially since, in both of their statements, they agreed that they messaged for a while after. Even if George initially missed her being 18, you would have to think that he just never checked her profile again, because if he was romantically interested in her, he would likely be checking out her profile after the fact. And if he did, that would mean that he missed her age several times.
Yeah, but where does it even say when it was created? This is Instagram, right? I'm gonna pull up Instagram on mine because I'm curious. I mean, I'm barely on my Instagram as it is, but taking forever. Logging in forever. Okay, not now. Don't want that. All right, the real news. Let's see. Well, mine doesn't even say it. So, okay. So this is a problem. Like I can understand George's issue here. All right. So if you're making the argument that, oh, just look at her profile. I could screenshot this and show people, but you can look me up. It's the real news. DJ Anubis. You'll find me in Middletown Radio. 125 posts, 177 followers, 241 following. DJ Anubis. It doesn't say anything about my age. Now I can put it in there. But I can literally put in 21 and it'll probably stick, right? If I put 21 in there, it would tell me that I'm 21. So you can't justify it. You can't just go by this because you don't know. There's no fucking date of when this was created. No date. You could probably go back to her very first post on Instagram to see when it was. But even then, if she has like a long list of like Instagram posts, who's gonna fucking do that? No one's gonna go back that far in history. So you can't use this as a barometer for her actual age, because if that still says 19 2 years after the fact, we know she's not 19 anymore, right? Or it didn't even say 18, it says 19. So I don't know what this is. Like, hold on. Making me do all this research. Where's my search function? Where the fuck is it? Oh, here we go. All right. Okay, well, here's another one page of hers. Now, this one's different. So she has 2 pages. So which one is this? It doesn't really tell me. Oh, wait. Yeah, no. I'm on it. Hold up, folks. So I'm trying to copy and paste this because this is weird. Maybe again, somebody can assist me if there's something I'm missing here, but where the fuck is it? All right. So let me do this. I just want to use this part of it. So I'll cut that, go into this. Okay. So I'm going to show you this, right? I just literally pulled up her profile in Instagram, and it has the same katiebugs.card.co, right? So look at that, okay? One, she doesn't even have her age in there anymore. Now, this here, unless it's like somehow 2 separate accounts, which if you look at the tag at the bottom, it's the same fucking thing. katiebugs.card.co. Now the followers are different, so let me see if I can find a different one. Maybe I'm just looking at the wrong one. Multiple fucking things. See, I don't know. I don't see anything else. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know. Excuse me. That's the only one that comes up for her. Did I just miss? Is this something else? What is this? But I just showed you, dude. This here. She might have deleted the account. Maybe that's what it is. But this here doesn't even have her age at all. And see, the thing is, it doesn't tell you when these are created. So you have no idea when these accounts are created. So this guy here, he's wrong. Like, even if George went to look at this, there's no way that it's going to tell him exactly her age at that moment. For fuck all we know, because you can put in anything you want, because you can put any age you want, she could have put in like 25 and it still would have been a lie, right? So you have to be this doesn't tell us anything. That's wrong. It doesn't tell you anything.
Times. He claims that he noticed it afterwards, at least a month after VidCon, but that's something that we'll get into later. So for now, I'll leave that up to your own judgment. Moving on with the contradictions, they seem to differ in discussing just how George touched Katie. Katie, within her initial statement, described it like this.
It was a little after that, when I had resorted to playing games on my phone when it happened. Out of nowhere, I felt him slip his hand under my clothes, sitting next to me on the couch, in front of everyone. He disguised it with a simple, "Are you ticklish?" I coughed out a no, still staring at my phone. I was overly aware of the fact that we were in front of other people, The fact that everyone else was sitting around us, watching us, including my best friend, and that his hand was inching further to places I hadn't asked for it to be.
Now, I will say this. And I'm going to go back to Papa Gut here. The thing that I agree with, I'm going to explain my perspective on this. Okay. Guys, when you're trying to like whoop chicks or vice versa, they'll start one way. So you all remember like the movies, and you take your girlfriend out, and if you're gonna like it's a first date and you're gonna make the movie, you're like, and you do one of these moves, right? And then in some movies they show them like grabbing the boobies, but the girl's like, you know, that's something guys do. It's called making a move. And yes, it's because they're interested in sex. It could be now George could be interested in dating her, but he could also be interested in having sex. Now, in that moment with people in the room, it's a little bit weird. But, you know, I don't know how these people act outside of the arena. Like, I don't even know if this is just a common thing. Obviously, for Katie, it's not. But for a guy, it's natural. Like, hey, if we're cuddling for an hour and I've got my hand on your waist, if I'm trying to initiate a sexual encounter, I'm going to kind of like test the waters to see what your reaction is. Now, Katie's admitted. In fact, I can kind of leave this one now. I'll just explain the rest because like this will take too long to get through if I don't do that. But Katie admitted that she never told George to stop anything because she was afraid that she would embarrass him. And if Katie ever watches this, my advice to you going forward, always use your voice. Communication is always big, always huge. You do not allow people to overstep your boundaries, even if you think it's going to embarrass them. If that's the case, you embarrass them. You don't necessarily have to be rude about it, right? You could have just been like, you know, I'm not ready to go here with this. You know, you can keep your hand here or cuddle me, but I'm not doing that. That's all you had to say. You could have took him privately and said, look, just chill out, yo, you know? And, so, you know, I don't blame George for trying to make a move on a girl that he was clearly interested in. And one of the biggest debates right now about this whole thing is whether or not, because like again, Katie kind of jumps around a little bit. In fact, I'll get to the last video here in a minute that talks about her latest video. It should be noted that George has come out and said that he's apologized to her for making her feel uncomfortable and, you know, definitely making her uneasy. Now, here's the key thing about this. George has only said to this point that he's put his hand on her waist, a little bit under her shirt. He's not ever said he grabbed her boob. That's something new that came out a couple days ago. And I think some people look at that as like her trying to take advantage of the fact that he said that he was wrong because now she's trying to make it more explicit, but she never stated about the boob thing until now. The other issue that I have is parents. Where is her parents? Not only then, but where's her parents now after all this? Like, does her parents not keep track of what she does online? Do they not know about this? Have you not talked to them about this? Because I can't imagine your dad's going to be like, oh, this motherfucker touched my daughter? Oh, I'm going to fucking beat his ass. We're going to take his ass to court, get him arrested. So I don't know if Katie's had this discussion with her parents, but where the fuck are they? If I'm her dad, I'm not allowing you to go to a hotel room to drink. Granted, they probably didn't know because I know how kids are. We just know, right? But some other things that are very troubling for me is how Katie words a lot of this. throughout a lot of her videos, she keeps saying, I was just freshly 18. I mean, unfortunately, it comes across like a bad Brazzers commercial when she does that, because like it tries to put this emphasis that she's freshly 18, even though she's been 18 for like 5 months and, you know, out of high school. The reality is you're an adult. That's where I'm going to go back to Papa Gut. You're an adult. Act like an adult. Part of being an adult is speaking up and saying, I have boundaries, stay off. That's part of being an adult. You don't get excuses for being shy, especially when you have no problem coming out on video and putting this guy on full blast. I don't believe the shyness at all. I think, you know, for me, when I started doing video, I'm an introvert. I do well during social gatherings, unless it's like a metal community, people my own, right? But doing video was a whole new thing for me to kind of branch out, and I was very nervous. I still get nervous doing this stuff because I have ADHD. Sometimes I fuck up my words. People notice that. It's okay. But for someone in your place, because you've been doing this for a while, Katie, Twitch streaming and stuff, so you seem very comfortable in front of a camera, and that's fine. But one thing that Katie said in her last video that I wanted to point out that I thought I agreed with her on was she was pointing to another video that George had done where she said, I can understand it if you came out of that night feeling differently about how things went. But then she goes and says, well, but you kept saying but, and that really fucking annoys me. I agree with her the first part. Because I think that had she not put him on full blast on video and actually went and tried to get a hold of him behind the scenes, even if he was ghosting her, could have contacted one of his friends to say, look, I really need to talk to him about something. Could you please have him just text me or call me because it's very important? And if you would have explained then, like, because I do believe, Katie, if you're listening, I don't think this guy had ill intentions for you. Do not at all. I don't know him. You probably know him better than I do, but judging by everything I've seen, it doesn't look like the way that things were playing out that he had bad intentions. Sure, he probably wanted sex. Most guys do. That's just the reality of life. But you have your own boundaries, so you could have just told him to kick rocks, like right then and there. You know, you need to use that voice. Like I said, you can't go back and change the past. But what I'll say is this. It doesn't matter who you get involved with going forward. That kind of move and maneuver stuff is stuff that happens naturally. That's organic because you've admitted to touching him too. You said he did more of the touching, but you touched him too. So that means either you're just blatantly lying about certain things or you actually were interested in him in some way, even if by the time the evening was over, you weren't because you felt very uncomfortable at that moment. The fact is you started out comfortable with him. Why would you let him spoon you for an hour and then get up and come back and let him keep doing it? There's nobody on this planet that I've ever met, girl or boy, who was, if they don't like somebody, aren't going to do that. They're just not going to do it. They'd find another seat, right? So just know that going forward, anytime you're with a guy, and if you're really into him, like even if you're not into George, but you were into this other guy, like that's going to kind of move around. They're not always going to say, hey, is it okay if I touch your tit? That's not organic. That's not how a natural flow of emotion works when you're trying to begin intimacy with somebody. It's just not how it works. And like, sure, you can argue that in this day and age, girls want that, but like, I couldn't imagine in this day and age trying to do that. Like, it's just, it wouldn't feel very organic. If I had to sit there and ask each time, all right, can I kiss you? Can I touch your boob? Can I go down your pants? Can we have sex? Like, you know, me growing up, dude, like sex was awkward at times because I was young. I was learning just like anyone else. And, I was with a virgin once. And the first time we were messing around, I went down on her. We were fooling around. I was wanting to have sex, but she said, I'm not ready. I respected that. Keep in mind, she spoke up. It would have been devastating for me had we had sex and then she came out a year or two later and said that I raped her. It would have been devastating. You have to understand that the reason why I think it was important for you to contact him privately is because when you put him on full blast like that on a video, he's gonna get defensive. So those butts that he was putting in there is because he's still angry that you did this in this way. Because he truly seemed shocked that you made the accusation. This is why I think he actually liked you. I think he really did like you. Now, whether or not this rumor or gossip about him finding out you were 18 or he actually found out and just ghosted you after because of that, I don't know. And whether or not you're doing this because you're mad that he ghosted you, I don't know. I'm not going to make that claim for you. I'm not going to say that. But, the girls that I had been with in the past, whenever things were getting too hot and heavy, they would tell me to put the brakes on. That's so fucking important, no matter what it is. And it doesn't mean the guy, if he feels you up. Now, granted, the scene where it happened with you and him is weird. Like, he shouldn't be doing that in front of other people. That's weird. I get that. But it doesn't necessarily mean that he was having bad intentions for you. He generally could have cared about you, could have still wanted to have sex, but it doesn't mean he would have been like, I fucked you, I'm gone. You don't know that. But either way, I wish that you would have handled this a little bit differently, because I do think it is a misunderstanding. I do think that you both got signals crossed. And if you're not saying anything throughout the night and you're kind of just going along with it, he's not going to really pump the brakes because he's assuming that you're okay with everything that's happening. And now, a year later or whatever it is, you're coming out and saying this and he has no idea. Like, he's like, what? What are you fucking talking about? So it's got to be pretty devastating for him to have someone make that accusation when that person wasn't even pushing back the night that it happened. You have to understand, guys are not mind readers. And girls are trying to play this card now, which is dishonest. It's a really dishonest thing to do. Guys, the only way that guy's going to know that you're not interested, Katie, is if he goes to spoon you and put his arm on your waist, you get up and go sit somewhere else, or you push away. If he starts to go up your shirt, push away. That's a sign that a guy will understand. That's a sign that a guy will understand. But if you're going to sit there and let him do it and then assume that if you're just not, you're not pushing away from him, he's going to assume that it's okay. All I know is, I know some people that are the more modern era of youngsters are going to look at this video and they're going to be very angry with me about it on that take. But the reality is that I went through the same shit you all are, and this was never a problem. I've never had a girl come back and say, oh, you raped me or you sexually assaulted me. That's why I know it's kind of dumb. The whole theory about men supposedly reading your mind or your signs. The only signs that I can read are saying no and pushing away and walking away. Those are signs. If a girl is sitting there and she's kissing you and things are getting heavy, and even like I said with the virgin girl, like when she wasn't ready the first time, I was like, cool, babe, that's cool. I understand completely. It didn't mean we couldn't fool around and have fun, but that was the thing, right? And then when we finally did have sex, it was fine. Like, again, nobody came back, was angry. It was just it. And I'd only been with that girl a couple of times, like as far as the sexual part was concerned. Like I didn't really date her. So, it's weird that now we have to have basically a written contract of what we can do to be in a dating cycle. And, you hear these stories where women are out there asking why men are so content with being alone or single and rather sit in front of a computer jerking off than to get into a relationship. Well, that's part of it because women want to make the romance part of it so complicated. And it's really kind of a joke. Like I'm not trying to pick on you because I know you're young and you haven't really experienced a lot in that field. So I get your concern there. And it can be tough for you because as a girl, a woman, you're looking around in media and everything else, and people are telling you different things about how you should act or what you should take as offense. But, men and women are different, but it's not every guy that's out there is out there to be a predator or be a mean guy. Like even at his age, like he's a gamer. He might be old in terms of like 26, but mind wise, he's still probably right on your wavelength. You guys clearly played and enjoyed the same game, right? So it's not like that can't happen. My wife and I are 11 years apart, but we're on the same wavelength. We love music, we love movies, we love entertainment, we love being together. She's my best friend, the best friend I've ever had. She's actually the breadwinner. She's way smarter than I am. I'm not intimidated by that at all. I can appreciate that about her. So I just wish that when it came to this, rather than people jump immediately onto a YouTube vid or something like that. Now, granted, I can't say that you haven't tried. I don't want to do that because that would be unfair. If you tried to contact him and talk about this more with him and he just shunned you, then I get it. You want to get your voice out there. But your stories, the stories and the videos you've done have been very inconsistent. The latest one, of course, I'm going to play right now. Chud Logic, who leans a bit right, but it's not a very long video, but he's going to go over this because I think Nick Diorio also caused it. It's not going to be very flattering for Katie here, but there's reasons for that. And her story just isn't adding up. And even though, George is pretty much admitted to overstepping his bounds, even though I think he's just more pressured into saying that because of how society is now. You'll see what I'm talking about here because she's again coming out very defiant. Really, this video, last one she did, wasn't needed since George had already pretty much squashed it, I guess. But here we go.
In her newest statement, she's like, people only think that I am guilty because they only watched George. Well, I didn't. You didn't. Tom didn't. We watched her story. I think she's lying because of her Twitter statement and how it contradicts her original statement and how it contradicts her friend's statement. Okay? The reason why she's so upset is because her story is unraveling. I think that her nasal passage is one of her authors. Yeah, right. This is her BPD showing through. Her nose is just like, come on, I have the cow piercing. Tug me, tug me.
Oh, wait, he's calling.
That was me. What is VidCon? Shad? It's a convention where pedophiles
Hang on, I can't hear you. Wait.
Hey, what's going on, Shad?
Sorry, I fucked up here. I
fuck.
can do this.
Hang on, I can't hear you. Wait.
In 2 seconds. Sorry, I fucked up here. I can do this. I know I
How
can
you
hear
doing,
you
buddy?
in 2 seconds.
Oh,
Go.
can you hear me? How you doing, buddy?
I'm good, but there's
Hello. Oh, can you hear me?
echo.
Dude, did you
I'm
hear
good,
that she
but
did
there's-
my intro?
Okay, I was playing your stream. Sorry. Go on.
Did you hear that she did my intro?
Yes, I heard that she did your intro. Correct. Yes, that was funny.
Time.
Oh no, dude, you're not. Surely, come on.
Dude, it's time, bro.
It is time.
Dude, this woman got groped, brutally groped now at a party.
Dude, now you gotta put now at the end of there, as if because she talks about this like we all knew, right? Like this whole time we were all fully aware that she was like tit grabbed, bro. Oh God, what are your thoughts? I'm not even.
And that's the thing. So Katie brings this out in this latest video about the boob grab. Every guy that I've seen cover this has mentioned that this changes the dynamic of the accusation itself. But the reason why people still have a hard time believing her is because she's just now waiting to tell everybody, but she acts like this is something she's told everybody from the beginning, which hasn't been the case at all. And then, as Papa was saying, like, there's a moment in the video where, in this last one, where she admits to touching George too, in terms of the cuddling. And so, what that does is that tells George that you're interested when you're doing touching back. So this is why when I talked to Katie about earlier was you have to be forceful and you have to be straight when you turns about like the intentions that you have with him. If you don't want that shit, if you don't want him touching you or, you know, making any moves, even if he was like trying to go up your shirt, you fucking like put the brakes on that shit. Know your boundaries. If you're uncomfortable with that, fucking slap his hand away. You have the right to fucking do that. You have the right to do that.
I'm halfway. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I've gotten into a bit of schizo posting, and it feels like this is just some new angle to try and make the medicine go down smoother. I just don't understand.
I've been comparing it to like when the people are like, it's not Holocaust denial, it's revisionism. But that's her in this case. Like she's a fucking like rape revisionist.
Yeah, that probably is quite a good way of looking at it. Rape revisionism, sure.
No, I'm denying it. She was not fucking assaulted, bro. Get out of here.
I haven't got time for this Mickey Mouse bullshit.
If though what she was saying was true, that she was groped, would you consider that to be actual sexual assault at that point?
I think there's situations where it would be 100%. I'm not sure I would use that to describe the situation based on every other aspect of her story. If she was sitting there until the wee hours of the morning spooning and cuddling with this guy for over an hour, and then he grabbed her he grabbed her stomach, she didn't swat his hand away, he fucking moved up, right, then grabbed her breast or something like that, I think the biggest criticism is doing this in front of other people, which is also the biggest.
Agreed. Like, yeah, it's about tact and class. Like, you don't make those kind of moves in a room full of people. Like, that's just not kosher.
Boon to this version of the story, because I'm sure somebody at this point who watched this would mention that he grabbed her tit. But again, we're not doing it whether it happened or whether it didn't happen. I think the context being that they were cuddling for over an hour and spooning. She was the little spoon. I don't know if I would say that this guy's a fucking sexual assaulter.
Yeah, I mean, it's just what was so funny to me about this whole thing so far is that, spoiler alert, I guess a bit, but she, doesn't bring up the fact that we're cuddling at any point. Why would you not?
Even in her newest statement, she's like, people only think that I am guilty because they only watched George. Well, I didn't. You didn't. Tom didn't. We watched her story. I think she's lying.
Yeah, that's a disingenuous take by Katie there too, because that's the same kind of take that people had during the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial, was that, oh, these people are just, Depp stands and stuff. But like, no, a lot of us sat there and watched that fucking trial from start to finish, and we understood what was being said, the evidence provided. Same thing here. Like, I've watched every fucking video that both of them put out. There's a lot of inconsistencies, and she has a lot more than George does. But again, George is the one that's kind of like at times just taking the high road here. Now people are giving him shit for being a cuck and like not standing his ground, but I think on to some level he's just trying to be a gentleman about it. He's trying to be like, look, I thought we had a moment and you clearly felt differently, so I'm just going to say my bad. I apologize. And and I'll say this too, because Katie does bring up in her video that people ask her why she didn't go to law enforcement, and she says, well, because it's hard to prove those cases. And she's right. If she were to go into law enforcement and to try to go to get a lawyer for this, they would lose. Her lawyer would tell her she would lose this case. just based upon the fact that she was allowing the spooning to begin with. That's already a big problem for her there. But the other part of that is that I would say is she still should have went to the police, because you can at least get it on record that you made the accusation. And like, whether or not you want to pursue charges, you can still make the case and put it on record. This way, when it initially happens, you can say, "Hey, I fucking went right to the cops. Like, there's nothing I could do about it, because obviously it's hard to prove." But it wasn't like I waited a year or two later, like she did, to come out and say something, because it looks more vindictive at this point than it does if she had gone to the cops and have a record of it, right? Because you want that proof that whatever happened that night, the next day you're fucking in there talking to the police. You want that on record.
Because of her Twitter statement, and how it contradicts her original statement, and how it contradicts her friend's statement. Okay, the reason why she's so upset is because her story is unraveling.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, she's told a number of different things to a number of different people.
What? Oh, your chat. What if it was Big Spoon? Well, then she'd be the groper, right?
Yeah,
it's really hard to grope a woman from Little Spoon.
And the thing is, as well, is like her first story. She wrote it out with help, I believe. Right?
Yeah. Yep. Well, no, her original story was the one that she did on stream. She did that live. After a year, and then she wants us to believe she just got all the details wrong after she took a year to prep that statement.
Yeah, it just doesn't add up. Do you think this is like a completely fabricated thing, or what do you think is going on?
I feel like this is like when Keffel said, the police actually groped me when I was in custody. Like, the fuck they did what? You did 3 interviews with the local news. You just didn't mention that they groped you? You remember that? Like 8 months later, she changed her story? Yeah, oh, all the people who said the police did nothing wrong in that situation? Well, guess what, bitch? They groped me. Yeah, that's literally what's happening right now.
Yeah, for sure. It's such a crazy thing to get added. And also, all the people comment on this, the people that know her, didn't say anything of that. Didn't comment on that at all. And now all of a sudden, it's like fucking, we're suddenly supposed to believe that no, not only did it happen like that, but he's already admitted to it, apparently, according to her story.
Yeah, he's admitted to groping her breasts, like explicitly and outright, when that was totally the allegation. Therefore, everyone who's defending that is a fucking this is crazy, bro.
Yeah, that's the problem, is that George has not come out and said he grabbed her boob at all. He admitted that he was, cuddling with her, and he put his hand on her waist. That's the only thing he's ever said at this point. He's never said that he grabbed her boob or anything like that. But her coming out now and making that claim is basically throwing logs on a fire that wasn't there to begin with. And that's a very disingenuous thing to do. Like, if you can say it now, you should have said it back in your first video of what happened. Trying to add things along the line after this guy's already basically threw up the white flag because he doesn't want to deal with the drama anymore is fucked up. And like, again, I'm trying to be as objective as possible with her, because I'm trying to care about her feelings on this. That's why I'm trying to give her advice about how to handle things going forward in her life and her love life, because it's not that she's not going to maybe face someone else that does something, in a mean way to her. I just don't think this is a case where this guy was actually trying to do something hurtful to her. She just took it the wrong way, wasn't ready for it. She didn't say anything, so that made it worse. And that's just, you're trying to paint this guy as like this predator when I don't really think that's the case. Now, again, if George has these skeletons in the closet I'm not aware of, and he does this on more than that, then I would say, yeah, you have a great case. But I have not heard anything from anybody that says that this is like a track record with this guy.
I'm sorry that she regrets the night she had when she stayed after her friend got sick, and she was afraid to get up because she thought she would blow up his ego or something like that. So she just sat there and got groped instead. My bad, dude. But there's really nothing that we can do about this. This is so far from what people should be fucking canceled for. It's unreal.
Yeah, and the thing is like, if it was just a I was saying this earlier, if it was just a convo of like, hey dudes, just chill out, don't push things too quick on the moment you meet them at a party or over the night, whatever. But it's not that.
Yeah.
It is like an insane campaign
This
to
is like, you
destroy
didn't
this guy.
ask for verbal consent, so you're a sexual assaulter. Your career is over. Fuck you. It's like, that's not how the real world works. And it's funny. It almost feels like we're talking. I said this to my stream earlier. It almost feels like we're talking to Shubble, the adult now, because she turned off her kid persona, like her innocent victim persona. Now she's aggressive, angry, and she's talking like an adult. She turned off the poetry mostly.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's true. It was like she was in tears.
I think one of her BPD personas are speaking through right now. This is an alter.
Do you think she's got BPD?
I think that her nasal passage is one of her alters. Yeah,
Right,
this is her
okay.
BPD showing through. Her nose is just like, come on, I have the cow piercing. Tug me, tug me.
Oh my god. You're speaking very disrespectfully about this person, I must say.
Yeah, I speak very disrespectful about people who fucking straight up lied throughout the entire situation and got caught multiple times and then blamed everyone else when they got caught. Like, seriously, ultra charitable. Let's turn on Vosh mode. Let's be super charitable here, okay? And that's a joke, by the way, but to be fair, let's be super charitable. Let's say we believe her 100% that her breast was touched here, okay? What does that actually change? What does that change here about all the other things she's lied about throughout the entire situation? What, like, it doesn't make any sense.
Those inconsistencies still exist, and okay, look, I'm not saying the guy was great in what he did or whatever, if that was true, but like, if you're at a party and you're spooning with someone, it's not that crazy that there might be some fondling. You know,
yeah,
it sounds so bad to say, but it's just true.
No,
Like, we're
it's
supposed to be
not.
outraged.
It sounds like, oh, this is gonna be, dude. Mama Max is he's maxing right now, dude. He's like so hyped to make his documentary on victim blamers while he's watching the stream.
No.
But like, genuinely, like, what am I supposed to do here? What emotion do I have to feign to get on the internet's good side about this drama that I don't believe?
Yeah, well, it's supposed to be. Well, you know, I just tweeted this, but it's like, what you say you believe women. Well, which story? Because there's 3 different stories. Which one are we supposed to believe out of all of these? The latest one?
I'm following this as well as like, well, it feels like I'm talking to you and you're like, but what if Hassan actually did message a minor or something and Lav just got the ages wrong? It's like, that's what I feel like she's Lav maxing right now.
Well, I was going to ask you a question about this. I mean, surprised you haven't brought it up yourself, but how will this affect Tipster's legacy?
Oh, dude, he's the second topic on Ultimate Rape Review.
Oh, based.
Don't worry, we have a whole section dedicated to Tipster tonight.
Okay, well, I'm going to shoot in a moment. Before I do, I must ask, very self-centered, I know. Any comments on the Dark Viper shit at all yet?
That is the Tipster segment. We're going to be on that. I'm watching it for the first time live.
Oh, I see. So you're watching the Tipster version. Okay, got you.
Yes. Yeah, dude. Do you have my stream open? I don't think so, right? If you do, I want to show you the overlay. Here. This is here.
All right, so that's basically it of that. They're not talking more about the incident, but yeah, the thing is that, you know, there's a lot of inconsistency. She's coming out with more and more shit as it goes along. There was a moment where she tried to use a text message that she claimed was coming from George's friend, I guess supporting her about the things that happened that evening. But it turns out it wasn't even, because George called that guy and the guy said he never sent the text. So in this video, Katie comes back out and says, well, yeah, I got it wrong. I admit it. It was actually from one of the girls there, but she wasn't there when the event happened. So it's weird to me that she's trying to use evidence from something that wasn't even from, even if it was a guy, they weren't there when this took place. So trying to present that as evidence isn't really evidence. Like, it's just, I don't, she was trying to kind of point to the fact that maybe they could tell that she was not feeling comfortable or something. But again, why is your friend, if they feel like you're in distress, why are they not doing anything? Why are they not stepping in? 2, you still have a voice. You need to use that. So I'm sorry that you felt like this was a traumatic event for you. I'm not going to be Papa Gutton and say you're a loser and piece of trash and all this. I think that if you are doing this just to hurt him, just for whatever reason, and it's not true, I think that you're not really a good person doing that. But I'm trying to give you the benefit of the doubt. I think it is a misunderstanding of what happened that evening. I don't think the dude was out to hurt you. I think he was interested in you, sure, sexually. But you do have that right not to have sex. Like, you can just say no. And you probably should have pushed back much sooner and made it known that you didn't want to go into those boundaries. So next, yeah. So I just, it is. I hope this whole thing just goes out. I don't know what else you're gonna want out of this from a Katie's point of view. I don't know what else you want from this. If he's already apologized for his part in it, that should be adequate, right? Because you're not going to press charges. The only thing I can think of here is you're trying to smear his name. That's the only thing I can get out of this. And in some ways, that's wrong, because if it's a misunderstanding and you admitted that it could be a misunderstanding, then what you're doing is wrong. Trying to smear his name like this is wrong. So you need to be consistent about what you're saying. If you think he's a sexual predator, just stand by that. But if you come out and say, well, I can see how you might have thought this was a misunderstanding of the evening's events. We were both touching each other. I didn't really say anything. I should have. That's really what it should have been. This should have been a discussion behind the scenes. It should have never gotten to this point. Because now you've destroyed this dude's reputation. And even if you feel like you were violated, nobody's gaining anything from this at all. Nobody. So I'm sorry that evening played out the way it did for you. It should have been handled differently, though. This is not the way to go about doing that, because stuff like that is very destructive to men. It just is. Anyway, coming up on our channel, later today, 3 p.m. Eastern, I'll be interviewing Mugen Lord. Cool guy. I want to talk to him. Got a lot of stuff to talk about, including his start in gaming, as well as some of the stuff going on with SBI and other things within the gaming world. About 1:30 Eastern, coming up soon. I'll be with Kevin Lambert on his retro movie channel to talk Conan the Barbarian. We're going to review that and talk about that, which is going to be a lot of fun. And then tomorrow, Neko and I are going to go see Godzilla X Kong, The New Empire. I don't know if we're going to get the review up that night, because by the time we get back, it's be kind of late and she'll probably want to go to bed unless she's still, okay to do one. We're not going to be out all night, but if she's okay to go with it, then we'll do it that tomorrow night. If not, Friday evening, we'll get that review up for you all. And then, of course, down the road, we'll be on Kevin Lambert's channel with a bunch of other people who've seen the movie by then to discuss and review Godzilla X Kong. So thank you all for checking out this episode of Global Unscripted. If you enjoy the content, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. It all means a lot to us. And again, thank you for all the support. See you next time. Keep it metal, baby.
You see me for you.